Hey there, this is Mark, and today I'm going to go over my 1-year experience with the Quintana Roo PR5 Triathlon bike, Ultegra Group Set. I'm going to go over what I love most about it and some things that I wish I had done differently when I ordered it. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy this video. So what do you think is the thing I love most about this Quintana Roo? Or in Spanish it's pronounced Quintana Roo. For those who don't know, that's an area in the southern part of Mexico, and it's where Cancun is. Quintana Roo area, the Quintana Roo area. So what do you think I like most? Any guesses? Take a guess. It's the comfort. This bike is so incredibly comfortable. I had heard before it was, but the first time I got off, I think I did like a 2022 quick mile break-in ride. I felt refreshed, and that's what we want. As triathletes, we want to get off that bike feeling refreshed enough to go into that run without any back pain or leg strain. We want to hop off that bike and just go. I was very impressed with the comfort. Now, I do have it set up to where it fits me, in my opinion, the best compromise of aero and comfort. Plus, we have the ISM Triathlon saddle, which has a cutout front, the hollow middle. That helps a lot as well. But overall, I credit the frame design for this bike. So take a look at the frame. Notice how the tubing, the carbon fiber molded frame, I should say, not separate tubes, but one molded frame, is very thick, and it has all the right stiffness in all the right places. The right chainstay is quite thin, but look at this left side chainstay. It's huge. It's so wide. It's massive. And you have very thick tubing in the front area as well, with this cool kind of curved bottom. So not only is it aesthetically beautiful, but comfort-wise, it has that perfect combination of stiffness and responsiveness, but also relaxed enough triathlon geometry to where you're far forward on the saddle, but you're not strained. I don't know the full specs and how they do that, but it works. And trust me that it works, all right? And then the adjustment on this bike is otherworldly. Let me just show you a few things. So here, you of course can adjust your seat post up and down, but here in the saddle, you have a lot of room to move your seat post forward and backward. More room than on any other bike I've ever seen. Then on top of that, you can do a tilt angle of your saddle like most bikes, but then it's easier to lock in. And to make things even more helpful, they have the torque specs on every section that you need to adjust so that you don't have to look it up. It's all right there in front of you. You get your torque wrench, put it on perfectly. And so it's the adjustment here that is great. Now, the other thing I love about we call it QR, right, for short, is the responsiveness. When I was at the US Nationals in Cleveland, Ohio 2 years ago, before COVID, I talked to the Quintana Roo reps, and they assured me that this is the most responsive triathlon bike on the market. And so I said, okay, well, let's see. And like most of us buying bikes during COVID, I had to buy it blind. I couldn't test ride it. I ordered it using all the recommendations from, in this case, I had a bike agent help me. But it's true. When I race on it, and I've done about 5 races on it already, I corner like I do on my road bike. And I feel like I can attack the corners just as hard, just as steep an angle into the corner. I don't hold back at all. Even more so, I have more confidence when I'm in the aero position, taking very long sweeping corners or even slightly tight corners. I can still take those at speed, staying in the aero, very confident that the tracking is predictable. So this baby responds well. I really seriously attack and ride into those corners like I do on my racing road bike. It is truly impressive. Another cool feature of the PR5 is that it's full of storage options. Let me show you something. So here is an airfoil. This is part of the aerodynamic package of the bike. But at the same time, this entire section comes off the bike if you need to change it out. And when you want to store tubes, you just simply take off the top like that. And you can put all of your spare equipment tubes in there. So you never, ever have to use saddlebags, those ugly external saddlebags, which I hate. In addition, this one has a little safety light. So you can turn on the safety light like this. So when you're riding, you don't have to put on a separate light. It's built into the aerofoil. How cool is that? The only problem is that it seems to be affected by rain, and it's very touchy. Other storage is found here at the top of the top tube. This is a flexible rubber case, and you can put all sorts of things in here. I like to put my gels in here, maybe an energy bar right in there, and it fits perfectly. You can eat while in the aero. You don't have to move. It's perfect for that. As a taller rider, I am 1.93 m or 6'4", and I was worried about going to the PR6 because that has the aero cockpit, has less adjustability in height. So I wanted to go for the more traditional cockpit so I could use the spacers and the risers to make any necessary adjustments for fear that I'd be too extreme, too hunched over. So that's why I went with this particular cockpit. It is a little heavier, it's a little clunkier. Of course, you have all the cables sticking out. As a taller rider, the cables catch a little bit when you turn, but for the most part, it works really well. And of course, with Ultegra, it's very smooth shifting. Takes a little force, but very easy to shift. And then once you get your positioning right, everything's at your fingertips. It's pretty cool. So I also changed out for a longer stem. The one that came with the bike was very short. I thought it was too short for me, so I put on Easton EA90 120mm stem just to give me a longer positioning. And again, that's why I didn't want to go with that aero cockpit. I was too worried about the positioning, therefore I wanted more flexibility. And that came standard on the PR5. So that's what I went for there. I did eventually drop the stem, and I trimmed the stem tube here with a hacksaw, as they show you how to do, they being the Quintana Roo techs on YouTube. And I trimmed it down. I did drop it down eventually. In retrospect, I probably would have preferred the aero cockpit because it would have been just fine. But I was paranoid, so I played it safe with the traditional cockpit and stem setup. Now, you can probably notice I don't have the standard Quintana Roo wheels. I upgraded to the Mercury Aero Rim. These are the Mercury AFs, and it's, I forget what the dish is, but they are a medium aero rim, carbon fiber rim. By the way, for those riding carbon fiber rims, make sure you use the recommended brake pads. You have to use special brake pads for your carbon rims. Please do that. I was riding with someone the other day, and they were just making a heck of a noise, destroying the rims, and they couldn't stop properly. So you have to use your carbon fiber brake pads, please. The good news with Mercury, they come with the wheels, so easy to install. These are a wider rim, so it was very fussy to adjust the dual pivot brakes. Now let me show you what the difference here is. I went with the non-disc model. So I have the dual pivot brakes. On the rear, they're actually right here, kind of hidden, a nice arrow setup there. On the front, they're right here. So I went with traditional rim brakes, and Quintana Roo uses the Shimano Ultegra dual pivot setup. And I hate it. If I had known better, I would have gone disc like on my mountain bike and like on my other road bike. I hate dual pivot brakes. Whoever invented those, I'm a little irritated with you because they are the fussiest, most irritating brakes to adjust. And the rear one, I actually couldn't get it to fit the rim. I had to take it to a bike mechanic, which I almost never do. And he had to help me get it done by releasing the cabling, readjusting everything from scratch. He had to rebuild the dual pivot from scratch because it just wouldn't give enough room on one side. And he finally got it to work. Now I just don't touch it, I'm too paranoid. So I hope I never take that wheel off if I get a flat or something. Dual pivot are horrible. If you have a choice, go with the disc. The disc is a more complicated mechanism, but it's an easier day-to-day maintenance, okay? Remember the old days when we just had the single pivot rim brake? Very easy to adjust. I would suggest they just use those. Why didn't they just use those? They're so much easier. They're even lighter. And that was my thinking. I wanted to go lighter. So I figure we're racing in triathlon. We don't use our brakes that much. So lightness is key. So the rim brakes are lighter, and I figured I'd hardly ever be using them. But it bit me because they've been very difficult to adjust. And when I first got it, the first few months, I was always getting rim rub with these new wheels. It drove me crazy. Now, the other big difference between the PR5 and the PR6, it's not necessarily the frame design. They are pretty much the same carbon frame setup. It's the Grupo and the Cockpit being aero versus traditional, and of course what you get standard with the PR6. But also, the paint job is different, the decal. So the PR5 has this kind of abstract QR, and above that, PR6 and above, you have it spelled out on the frame. So basically, you can tell your teammates, look, I spent more, I have a PR6 and higher because my decal has the whole name. Quite frankly, I could care less. I think they both look cool, but the PR5 does just have this kind of decal, if you ask me. If I had a choice between the PR6 and the PR5, what would I choose? I would go with the PR6 disc setup with the Aero cockpit and the standard Aero Quintana Roo wheels. Upgrade to those wheels. You will not be sorry. This bike came with the ultra cheap, ultra thin Shimano, I even forget the model of that rim. Very basic, and literally within a week I had upgraded to these wheels. And I knew I would, but I probably could have saved by going with the Quintana rim, knowing it would fit properly the first time. So upgrade to the Aero wheels, get the PR6 if you're able, and then get the disc brake set up. That's what I would have done. So finally, back to frame size. As usual, I was very paranoid that the recommended frame size would not fit me. The largest Quintana Roo makes is a 58.5 centimeter. That's what this is. I was assured by the rep it would fit me, not to worry. He said he's put guys taller than me on it. And he was right. It fits me really, really well. And I have plenty of room to spare. Maybe with the exception of the cockpit. And I already told you how I customized that. So plenty of room. The frame size is finally a quick word on customization. Quintana Roo allows you to choose any color and any combination with the decaling and the frame color. So everything you see behind me was completely my choice. It's not like you have a limited choice of things to choose from. The sky is the limit. If you want to go turquoise blue frame and pink lettering, you can do it. I chose a somewhat conservative slate gray, matte. You can have the shiny as well, or the glossy, matte gray with that beautiful fluorescent yellow lettering. And I think it pops. So much so that at competitions, I've actually gotten quite a few comments about how nice my bike looks. And of course, like any bike, I want it to stand out on the road. I want it to be flashy for visibility, but also it's just fun. It's something I like. So when it comes to customization, Quintana Roo is awesome. Have fun with it. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this review. I've had the bike now for about a year. It's been great. I'm posting photos, as you can see during this video, of me racing on it. It hasn't given me a single major problem during a race, just fussiness with the brakes, but nothing to do with the actual frame. So I really recommend Quintana Roo for triathletes who want a very responsive bike, a very comfortable bike. I am certain I could do an Ironman on this. I think it would be completely fine for the distance. And I'll be doing a half Iron at the end of this year to see how that goes. Right now I'm just doing sprint and Olympic. and working my way up to the half iron. No problem. Ridden 40, 50 miles. Literally come off the bike, I'm like, hey, okay, let's go run. So it's really comfortable. And then I just love how I can attack the corners in it, just like my road bike, and have confidence in the stability of the frame. So I do highly recommend it. Just take my recommendations. Go with the disc if you can. Go with the PR6 if you're able. Get the Aero Cockpit if you're able. All right, have fun and enjoy.